Let me break something inside you right now. Something the world has protected for far too long. You were taught that leadership comes from kindness, that a pure heart earns loyalty, that honesty wins respect, that humility brings honor. Machiavelli would smirk at this illusion, because in the real world, the world you live in, weak leaders fall first, every single time. Not because the world is unfair, but because weakness invites predators. It whispers, "Use me." It signals, "I won't fight back." It promises you will face no consequences for betraying me. If you understand this, truly understand it, comment, "I choose power," the hidden lies that create weak leaders. From childhood, society carved a script into your mind, a script designed to keep you obedient, small, controllable. You were told to be polite, to avoid conflict, to trust people, to wait your turn, to stay humble, to prioritize others. But Machiavelli taught rulers that these rules weren't designed to protect you. They were designed to neutralize you, because a silent, compliant, predictable person is the easiest to manipulate. Today, we rip that conditioning out from its roots. Today, you learn to lead through power, not passiveness, through strategy, not naivety, through silence, not noise, through presence, not approval. Weak leaders don't fall because they lack talent. They don't fall because they lack intelligence. They fall because they are addicted to approval, hooked on the cheap high of people liking them, agreeing with them, praising them. This addiction is the silent poison that eats away at their authority long before they realize it. And the reason it destroys them is simple. The moment you need people's approval, you become their servant. Think about it. When was the last time someone respected a person who constantly sought reassurance? When was the last time you admired someone who apologized for everything? Someone who softened every sentence? Someone who smiled just to be accepted? People don't follow approval seekers. They use them. They manipulate them. They test how far they can push them. They learn exactly which buttons to press to get what they want. Approval seeking turns you into a map of weaknesses that anyone can read. Machiavelli understood this psychological trap better than anyone. He knew that leaders fall the moment their self-worth depends on the crowd. Because crowds are fickle, people change loyalty in seconds. One rumor, one shift in power, one inconvenience. And the same people who once praised you will quietly drift to someone stronger. Approval is a currency with no stability. You can be loved today and abandoned tomorrow. But respect, real respect, comes from power, not pleasantries. The weak leader wants to be liked because being liked feels safe. It feels comforting. It feels warm. It shields you from confrontation, from criticism, from the uncomfortable truth that leadership requires you to stand tall even when everyone wants to see you fall. But when you trade authority for affection, you sign the contract of your own downfall. You become predictable, soft, moldable. People know you'll bend if it means they'll stay. They know you'll compromise your vision just to avoid disappointing them. They know your heart is more important to you than your throne. Strong leaders flip the script by controlling perception instead of chasing approval. They understand that people admire what they cannot easily influence. They know that maintaining distance, decisiveness, and emotional control creates an aura that people follow naturally. They don't explain their choices, they demonstrate them. They don't ask for loyalty, they command it through presence. They don't worry about being liked, they focus on being undeniable. When you detach from approval, something powerful happens. People start leaning in. They start respecting your boundaries. They start valuing your time, your energy, your voice. They realize you're not playing the same emotional games everyone else plays. You become the rare presence in a world full of needy noise. And in that moment, the crowd shifts. They stop seeing you as a peer to please and start seeing you as a force to follow. Weak leaders crumble under the weight of their own words. The moment someone questions them, they rush to justify themselves, to clarify, to soften, to explain every detail, as if the world is constantly demanding their innocence. They believe that if they just say enough, if they just provide enough context, if they just open up their thoughts wide enough, people will finally understand them, value them, respect them. But that is the trap, because every word you spill becomes information someone can use against you. When you over-explain, you expose your insecurities. You reveal where you're uncertain, where you feel guilty, where you're afraid of being misunderstood. You show people exactly what you're trying to hide, your need for approval, your discomfort with tension, your fear of being judged. And the moment someone sees that weakness, even subconsciously, they change the way they treat you. They test your boundaries more. They challenge your authority more. They begin to see you as someone who can be pushed, someone who will fold under pressure. That is why weak leaders fall, not because they lack power, but because they talk themselves out of it. Machiavelli understood the psychology of silence long before modern communication ever existed. He knew that power is not just in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. Silence creates tension. Tension creates curiosity. And curiosity is the birthplace of influence. When people cannot fully read you, they cannot predict you. When they cannot predict you, they cannot control you. This is why strong leaders speak sparingly and decisively. They understand that their words are not simply messages. They are strategic weapons, every one of them placed with intention. Strong leaders do not fill silence. They allow others to drown in it. They know that silence forces people to reveal themselves. It makes them uncomfortable. It makes them speak more than they should. It makes them confess their motives, their fears, their desires. In silence, you learn everything about a person without saying a single word. You discover who is impatient, who is insecure, who is trying to impress you, who is trying to manipulate you. Silence is the ultimate interrogation technique without the interrogation. When you stop over-explaining, your presence changes. People begin listening to you more carefully. They hang on to each word because your words are rare. They interpret your pauses as intentional. They view your decisions as firm. They interpret your composure as confidence. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects their inner chaos. They don't see you as someone running to defend yourself. They see you as someone who already knows exactly what they're doing. Someone who does not need validation. Someone who cannot be rattled. This is why silence intimidates. Not because it is empty, but because it is controlled. People fear what they cannot read, and the leader who understands silence becomes unreadable, untouchable, and unstoppable. Weak leaders treat conflict like a fire they must run from. The moment tension rises, they shrink. The moment someone challenges them, they retreat. The moment a disagreement surfaces, they rush to smooth it over, apologize, compromise, and restore peace, even if that peace costs them their dignity, authority, and self-respect. They fear confrontation because confrontation exposes truth, and most weak leaders cannot handle the truth about themselves or the people around them. But here's the Machiavellian reality society never taught you. Conflict is not chaos. Conflict is clarity. Conflict is the moment masks fall off and people reveal who they truly are. When everything is calm, everyone pretends. They pretend to be loyal, They pretend to be supportive. They pretend to agree. Peace can be theatrical. Harmony can be fake. But conflict forces people to show their real motives. It pulls their hidden agendas out into the open. It reveals who respects you, who fears you, who envies you, and who is waiting for the perfect moment to undermine you. Weak leaders never learn this because they run from the very situations that would teach them how their environment actually functions. Instead of facing conflict, they avoid it. Instead of guiding conflict, they suppress it. They mistakenly believe that avoiding confrontation protects relationships, stabilizes their position, and keeps everyone happy. But in reality, all it does is delay the truth. And truth, when delayed, grows sharper and more destructive. Strong leaders understand the strategic power of conflict. They don't seek it for drama. They don't create it recklessly. They use it intentionally. They study reactions. They observe emotional shifts. They use tension as a tool to see who stands firm and who collapses under pressure. Conflict becomes a mirror, reflecting the loyalty and disloyalty in their circle. This is how Machiavellian minds separate the genuine from the opportunistic. The loyal supporter steps closer during conflict. The opportunist steps back. The fake ally grows silent. The hidden enemy becomes bold. Without conflict, you would never know the difference. Strong leaders also use conflict to establish boundaries others cannot ignore. The moment you confront someone calmly and directly, you send a clear message about your standards. You show that you will not tolerate disrespect. You demonstrate that you are aware, disciplined, and unafraid to protect your position. Conflict, when handled with control, elevates your authority. It proves you are not a fragile leader who needs harmony at all costs. You become someone who is willing to disrupt peace in order to defend principle. When you stop running from conflict, people begin treating you differently. They stop assuming they can push you. They stop testing your patience. They stop taking advantage of your silence. They realize that you are not someone who fears discomfort. You are someone who uses discomfort to reveal truth. And once you reach that mindset, you stop being manipulated by appearances and start leading with the fierce clarity only conflict can reveal. Weak leaders trust instantly. Strong leaders test consistently. Weak leaders hand out trust like it's a gift meant to prove their goodness. They believe that trusting people quickly makes them honorable, noble, virtuous. They think it shows confidence and openness. But in reality, all it shows is that they are naive, unguarded, and dangerously easy to influence. When you trust instantly, you reveal that you are not observing. You are not analyzing. You are not calculating. You are simply hoping that the world is filled with honest intentions when history, psychology, and human nature all prove otherwise. People are not always what they present. Some hide their ambition behind flattery. Some hide their envy behind friendliness. Some disguise their manipulation as empathy. And some simply adjust their personality to fit whatever they think will get them closest to your influence. Weak leaders fall for these masks because they are too eager to believe the best. They confuse kindness with loyalty, attention with sincerity, and familiarity with trustworthiness. They forget that anyone can act good when they want something. Machiavelli understood that trust is one of the most dangerous currencies a leader can spend. Once given, it cannot be taken back without consequences. Once misplaced, it opens the door to betrayal. That is why strong leaders never give trust. They allow people to earn it. They don't rush. They observe. They listen. They watch how people behave when no reward is attached, when pressure rises, when conflict appears, when loyalty becomes inconvenient. They test consistently because someone's true nature is revealed slowly, not instantly. Strong leaders pay attention to patterns, not promises. They notice how people talk about others behind closed doors. They observe how they react to your success. They study how their attitude changes depending on who is in the room. They learn more from small inconsistencies than from grand gestures. Instead of assuming someone is reliable, they let time prove it. Instead of assuming someone has good intentions, they watch how those intentions hold up during adversity. Time is the ultimate test, and strong leaders never rush time. When you adopt this mindset, you stop being surprised by betrayal. You stop being shocked when people reveal their true colors. You saw the signs early because you were looking, you were testing, you were evaluating. And because you were not blinded by hope or flattery, you remained in control. This is what separates strong leaders from the weak. Weak leaders trust out of emotion. Strong leaders trust out of evidence. When you stop trusting instantly and start observing consistently, people around you behave differently. They become more cautious in how they approach you. They realize you are not easily fooled. They understand that you cannot be manipulated with charm or quick loyalty. Your presence commands a higher standard because you are no longer someone who gives trust. You are someone whose trust must be earned. Weak leaders live for comfort. Strong leaders live for control. Weak leaders collapse because they mistake comfort for safety. They think comfort means stability, predictability, reassurance. They believe that if they stay in familiar environments, if they avoid discomfort, if they cling to routines that demand nothing from them, they will remain in control of their lives. But this is the illusion that destroys them. Because comfort is not safety. Comfort is sedation. Comfort is the slow dulling of ambition, instinct, and authority. Comfort is the silent assassin of every person who ever wondered why their life never changed. When someone becomes addicted to comfort, they stop evolving. They stop adapting. They stop preparing. They stop sharpening themselves. They start believing that tomorrow will look like yesterday, that people won't change, that threats won't grow, that competition won't intensify. And in that moment, they begin their own downfall. Weak leaders don't realize that the world does not stay still just because they do. While they cling to comfort, others sharpen their strategies. While they seek ease, others cultivate discipline. While they avoid challenges, others seize opportunities. Comfort blinds you to the fact that someone, somewhere, is preparing to take what you're not defending. Machiavelli understood that leaders who embrace comfort start losing not because they lack power, but because they lose the sharp edge required to maintain it. Power demands awareness. Leadership demands vigilance. Influence demands constant recalibration. The weak leader wants peace without preparation. They want results without pressure. They want loyalty without strategy. And so they drift, unaware that their guard is lowering, unaware that their environment is shifting, unaware that their position is slowly eroding under them. Strong leaders see comfort for what it truly is, a threat disguised as relief. They understand that comfort weakens instincts. It makes you sloppy. It makes you vulnerable. It makes you forget that survival, whether in politics, business, social dynamics, or personal life, belongs to those who remain alert and adaptable. Strong leaders don't worship comfort. They use it strategically and then return to discipline. They step into discomfort because discomfort forces evolution. It builds mental calluses. It sharpens focus. It reveals strengths you didn't know you had and weaknesses you must eliminate. When you live for control instead of comfort, something shifts inside you. You stop looking for the easiest path and start looking for the path that gives you leverage. You stop reacting emotionally and start acting strategically. You stop allowing moods to dictate your discipline and instead allow discipline to dictate your results. You begin to operate from intention rather than impulse. And people sense it. They notice that you don't waste time. They see that you're not swayed by distractions. They realize that you are not seeking comfort, you are seeking mastery. This presence alone alters how people treat you. They become more cautious with their words. They become more respectful with their actions. They recognize a leader who is not softened by comfort, but strengthened by control. Weak leaders fear losing people. Strong leaders fear losing self-control. Weak leaders destroy themselves because they attach their power to people instead of attaching people to their power. They believe that holding onto everyone, friends, allies, followers, relationships, is the key to maintaining strength. They fear abandonment like it's a death sentence. They fear disappointing others. They fear being seen as too cold, too distant, or too difficult. So they cling. They tolerate disrespect. They overlook betrayal. They allow people to cross lines that should have never been touched. And every time they do, their authority bleeds out a little more. When your biggest fear is losing someone, that person owns you. They control your decisions. They influence your emotions. They shape your behavior. They can manipulate you simply by threatening to walk away. Weak leaders don't see this until it's too late. They think they're preserving harmony. They think they're protecting the bond. But what they are really doing is sacrificing their power on the altar of attachment. They give others leverage over them, leverage that can be used, twisted, or weaponized at any moment. Machiavelli understood the brutal truth that weak leaders avoid. When you fear losing people, you become dependent on their approval, their presence, and their acceptance. You stop acting from strength and start acting from insecurity. You make decisions out of emotion instead of strategy. You bend your standards to keep toxic individuals around. You tolerate behavior you should have confronted. You silence your instincts because you don't want to push anyone away. But the person who fears losing people will eventually lose themselves. Strong leaders operate with a different internal code. Their greatest fear is not losing someone. It is losing control over their own actions, their own judgment, and their own standards. They understand that anyone who can walk away should be allowed to walk. They do not chain relationships to their identity. They do not need constant reassurance. They do not beg for loyalty. They build an environment where loyalty is inspired, not demanded. And if someone chooses to leave, they let the door open and do not chase. A strong leader knows that power comes from self-governance. When you control your emotions, you control your reactions. When you control your reactions, you control the situation. When you control the situation, you control the outcome. People respect those who can walk away without hesitation, who can detach without falling apart, who can maintain their composure even when others try to provoke emotional chaos. This level of control is rare, and rare always becomes powerful. When you stop fearing the loss of people, your behavior changes. You stop negotiating your value. You stop lowering your standards. You stop giving second chances to those who haven't earned them. You stop prioritizing people who wouldn't hesitate to abandon you the moment something better comes along. And as your self-respect rises, an interesting thing happens. The right people stay with more loyalty, and the wrong people remove themselves without you having to lift a finger. People intuitively gravitate toward individuals who are independent, self-contained, and emotionally unmoved by external pressure. They sense a leader who cannot be controlled through attachment. They recognize someone who values themselves more than they fear loneliness. And that presence, calm, unshaken, deliberate, commands more respect than any desperate attempt to hold on to the wrong people ever could. Weak leaders wait for permission. Strong leaders create opportunities. Weak leaders collapse under the weight of hesitation. They wait for permission, for validation, for signs from the world that it is safe to move. They believe that timing, approval, or external circumstances will hand them power on a silver platter. They convince themselves that patience equals wisdom, that waiting will eventually lead to opportunity. But Machiavelli's ruthless reality exposes this as a fatal misconception. In the world of influence, waiting is surrender. Waiting is watching your competitors sharpen while you stagnate. Waiting is giving others the chance to define your destiny for you. Weak leaders spend their days analyzing, overthinking, and second-guessing. They monitor every movement in the environment, hoping for the perfect alignment of stars. They wait for someone to open a door, for someone to nod in agreement, for the world to deem them ready. They confuse comfort with preparation, delay with strategy. And while they wait, the bold act, the decisive strike is made, and the world passes them by. Weak leaders are spectators in their own life, applauding others' victories while quietly eroding their own potential. Machiavelli warned that fortune favors the bold, but boldness is not accidental. It is cultivated, deliberate, and strategic. Strong leaders understand that opportunity does not arrive like a messenger. It must be constructed, seized, or invented. They do not sit idle, waiting for a signal. They analyze patterns, calculate risks, and anticipate outcomes, then act with intention that changes the trajectory of every situation. They create doors that others cannot see. They build paths that others assume are impossible. The world does not hand them favors. They claim them, and the act of claiming strengthens their authority. The decisive leader does not rely on others' permission to move. They act with audacity, using momentum as a weapon. They understand that hesitation breeds doubt, and doubt invites exploitation. Every pause gives someone else the advantage. Every moment of waiting is a moment someone else gains influence over your domain. Strong leaders do not wait for alignment. They force alignment. They manipulate circumstances. They exploit weaknesses in timing. They bend reality to their favor. Waiting is a luxury. The weak indulge in. Action is the armor of the strong. When you adopt this mindset, your presence shifts immediately. People notice that you do not seek approval before acting. They sense your authority because you initiate, rather than respond. They see your unpredictability and respect your ability to control outcomes before others even recognize the stakes. You become a force that others must account for, a mind operating ahead of the world's rhythm. Creating opportunity transforms you from a reactive participant to a proactive architect of reality. It positions you above those who endlessly wait for validation, approval, or chance, revealing the stark divide between weak leaders and those who master their fate. Weak leaders seek peace. Strong leaders prepare for battle. Weak leaders are obsessed with peace. They believe that avoiding tension, confrontation, and conflict is the key to stability. They assume that as long as the waters appear calm, their position is secure, their power intact, and their influence unchallenged. They are comfort seekers disguised as diplomats, negotiating with fear rather than strategy. But Machiavelli knew that peace is not a shield. It is a temporary illusion, a fragile mask that hides the shifting currents of ambition, envy, and betrayal. Those who depend on peace as a strategy are the first to fall because they are unprepared when chaos inevitably arrives. The world does not operate on good intentions. It operates on advantage. Every person around you is constantly evaluating how they can gain more, how they can advance, and how they can position themselves above you. Weak leaders fail to see this because they avoid tension, suppress confrontation, and hope that smooth words will maintain harmony. But harmony maintained by fear or naivety is brittle. It shatters at the first sign of threat. Those who seek peace without preparation are walking into ambushes they cannot predict, surrounded by people who would betray them in a heartbeat if it served their interests. Strong leaders understand that the appearance of peace is tactical, not permanent. They prepare for battle in every form, psychologically, strategically, and emotionally. They anticipate betrayal, study the ambitions of others, and maintain readiness for conflict even when everything seems calm. They recognize that leadership is not about avoiding disruption, it is about controlling it. By preparing for battle, strong leaders maintain authority, anticipate challenges, and ensure that no surprise can destabilize their domain. They understand that the first rule of survival is awareness, and the second is readiness. Preparation does not mean paranoia, it means dominance. Strong leaders maintain an elevated state of vigilance where every decision, every interaction, every alliance is measured against the potential for advantage or threat. They rehearse responses, they calculate outcomes, they observe inconsistencies in behavior. They see every conversation as a test, every alliance as conditional, every compliment as a potential manipulation. In doing so, they convert the uncertainty of the world into actionable intelligence. They convert fear into strategy, chaos into control, and unpredictability into power. When you embrace this mindset, people perceive you differently. They see that you do not rely on luck, approval, or external validation to maintain your position. They sense your readiness, your discipline, and your foresight. They recognize that while they are hoping for peace, you are preparing for the storm, and that awareness alone commands respect, deters betrayal, and consolidates authority. Being prepared for battle transforms you into a presence that cannot be easily challenged, manipulated, or undermined, positioning you far above those who naively cling to the illusion of peace. Weak leaders fall because they depend on others, chase comfort, and avoid the harsh truths of power. Strong leaders rise because they act with strategy, control their perception, master silence, embrace conflict, and prepare for every challenge. The choice is yours: remain weak or take command of your destiny. I control my destiny.